Hey, former Starbucks chairman and CEO Howard Schultz was a hot topic here yesterday for saying he's seriously considering running for president as an independent. And he's here to tell us right now why he wants to do that. Please welcome author of the new book, From the Ground Up, Howard Schultz.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I am going to ask you about that, because I think you've been a lifelong Democrat.
Yes.
Are you not sure that your policies are strong enough to run as a Democrat?
Well, I think I would have to be disingenuous to run as a Democrat today. But I think the question that I'm asking myself, and I think many of us are asking ourselves, is what kind of country do we want to live in? And right now, I think it's clear that the country we are living in needs significant change. Not only change because of this president, but change because of the toxicity and the lack of compromise of both parties. And we certainly saw that. We certainly saw that over the last month. The president was responsible for closing the government, but 800,000 people and their families were doing everything possible just to eat. And the Democrats, as well as the Republicans, are responsible for that.
All right.
Well, I just want to ask quickly, what are the Dems too left on, you think? What issues will back to bite them?
I don't know Senator Harris, but listening to her last night say we should abolish the insurance industry as a way to go forward on health care, that alone would wipe out millions of jobs of Americans. And that is the kind of extreme policy that is not a policy that I agree with. And if you take immigration, you take health care, what we have is extremes on both sides, not representing the large majority of Americans who don't have a voice. And what I'm saying is, let's give the American people a choice. And what better expression of democracy then why should we only rely on Republicans and Democrats that have displayed, not only the last 2 years, but for decades, an inability to do the people's work?
All right, I'll tell you why in a second, but...
Okay.
But I want to tell people about you a little bit, because when I had a show over at CNN, I ran into Howard on the elevator, and I said to him, Howard, get me a latte. He's a Starbucks guy, right? And I was teasing you. And I went back to my office, and the next thing I know, he shows up, and I have a picture of it. He shows up with a latte. Now, that's a great guy. You know what I mean? That the CEO of Starbucks delivers a latte to me. Very nice. And I also like the fact that you gave insurance to your part-time employees. That was really sweet. I mean, that's a little above and beyond. But, and here's the big but.
Okay.
Michael Bloomberg has said to you, don't run. And he was thinking of running, but then he did the research and he found out he couldn't win, so he got out of the race. The main thing, and I said it yesterday, that scares me, is that your entry into this race will guarantee Trump another 4 years. And we cannot have that. You talk about the Democrats not wanting to negotiate. They cannot negotiate with a toddler. If you give him the cookie one day, the next day he wants another cookie. So that's not equal on both sides. They had to play tough, the Democrats, with him. Otherwise, he will run amok. Now, your entry into the race pretty much guarantees that a Republican is going to win.
Joy,
and I know
I don't agree with you.
I know you don't.
I don't agree with you. In fact, not only do I not agree with you, but I think if President Trump runs against a far-left, progressive, liberal Democrat.
What if he runs against Biden? Biden's the middle of the road guy.
Biden hasn't come into the race yet. But let's finish. If he runs against a far-left, progressive person who is suggesting 60, 70% tax increases on the rich and a health care system that we can't pay for,
I don't know about
President Trump is going to get reelected. And all I'm saying is, let me go out to the country and let the people hear my story. I grew up in the projects of Brooklyn. I gave my company comprehensive health insurance, equity in the form of stock options, free college tuition for every employee, and I figured out...
You can't do that with the country.
Well, you can.
No, listen. No. Because this is the same problem you know who has. When you when you own your company, you can make these changes as you want them to be. When you have to report to the Senate and the Congress and all the 50 million people that come in the middle, that's a little bit different. And so you know, my big problem is I want people to stand up for what they believe in. And I think you're saying to people, I don't think you'll hear me unless I speak to you as an independent. I think if you believe in what you believe in, then stand up for that as a Democrat and then change the party if you feel like that, as opposed to going elsewhere. That was what I wanted to finish saying.
Okay. Can I ask you all one question, and maybe even the audience? Does anyone believe the current system, not only the president, but the current political system and our government is working well on behalf of the American people?
Not since Obama was elected, no.
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 I do think it's the best system
but I think
that
it
we
has
have.
to do with money in campaigns and money in politics. And you're a glaring example that as long as you're a billionaire, you can run for anything. And my problem with politics right now is the influence of money. And no shade at you, but you do have to be a billionaire to run as an independent. That's why Michael Bloomberg's the other example you've given.
Well, but you can't buy the presidency. The American people are going to decide. But let me just make one point. No. Can I make one? Can I make one point?
Sure.
So in the last 3 or 4 presidential elections, basically 8 battleground states decided the election. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Now, if an independent person were to run for president and get on the ballot of all 50 states, which if I decide to run, we will be on the ballot of all 50 states. For the first time in almost 40 years, I'll get that. For the first time in almost 40 years, every state, every person's vote will matter. It won't be 8 states. It'll be a 50-state race.
As opposed to the Electoral College.
No, but...
So it's a way of circumventing it?
No, it's not a way of circumventing it, because we could get to 270 because every state will matter. But the issue that I think
does matter. That's why the Electoral College exists. And I love the primary. I love primary politics. And no disrespect to you, but you just went on Gwyneth Paltrow's podcast. You're here on The View. All politics, I believe, should start local. Why aren't you in New Hampshire or Iowa right now?
You know what I want to ask, though? I mean, I could.
He's selling a book.
I know, but if you're running for president, which I believe you are, I still believe in the. Sorry, Sonny, to interrupt you. I truly believe in it, and I actually think that, like, if you go to New Hampshire, which I've done as Abby, these people take their vote and they take their first in the nation status seriously. And the idea that you negate their choice, and I'm not going to concede that. I still am fine with the Electoral College.
I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying anything against the Electoral College. What I'm saying is, if it's a 50-state race, you can get to 270. Electoral College applies. With regard to New Hampshire and Iowa, watch every Democrat go to those states and have to be disingenuous and probably make a false promise about fentanyl just to be able to get elected in the primary in those states. I would have to be disingenuous as a Democrat if I ran as a Democrat, because in order to run as a Democrat today, you have to fall in line with free Medicare for everybody, free college for everybody, a free job for everybody. Let me finish.
But that's what you said you were given to your. That's what you just said you gave everybody.
But not the way not free for the government. And that totals about $40 trillion on top of the fact that we are sitting on a $21 trillion debt in the country today. We can't afford to do it free, so it has to be a different way. And the different way is corporate responsibility has to fall in line and do more for their people and the communities we serve, like Starbucks did, and pharmaceutical companies and lobbyists that have been paying these politicians, Democrats and Republicans, have to stop. And can you imagine, just imagine for 1 minute, if an independent person could have a mandate from the country, from the people, the first one since George Washington, to finally say to the system and the special interests it no longer applies, that an independent person can break the logjam of this toxicity that exists.